You're listening to WLPNLP, Chicago 105.5 FM, Lumpin' Radio, Bridgeport.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again, 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 again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again, 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 again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Quinn, coming to you from a very hectic, very chaotic Studio B. So, you know,
it's usually so calm, you know.
Yeah, usually so calm. But now there is a serious soiree going on.
That's right.
But I wanted to thank all of you guys for tuning in live via the airwaves here in Chicago on 105.5 FM, or if you are listening in the Lumpin' Radio app or TuneIn app, I wanted to thank you for that as well. I guess I should probably say that I'm coming to you from the Co-Prosperity Sphere here in Bridgeport Studio B, and thanks to Lumpin' Radio and its fearless leaders. And thank you for listening live. If you are listening live, you should jump into the chat room. It's tlk.io/WLPN. And if you aren't listening live, if you're listening via iTunes or something like that, I still thank you for listening. And I appreciate that you're downloading this podcast and joining us. I will say that you can't enjoy the banter on the live chat, especially if you would like to see people making fun of me and my guests. But maybe next time. But let me just quickly say, well, I'll first apologize for last week. We had our first ever lost episode. I don't want to get into it. It's a lost episode. It happens. I wouldn't say it's the best episode we ever had, but it was probably top 2.
Yeah, it was up there with the other one.
It was the greatest episode ever, and you'll never hear it. So don't bother.
Don't bother unless someone out there recorded it and then send it to me.
15th, because I've been on a lot of these. So.
Yeah. See you, man. Anyway, for those of you listening for the first time, let me tell you what you're listening to so you're not completely confused. The goal of the show is to open up a window into how the people making, selling, marketing, and facilitating the beer getting into your glass feel about the topics that are a part of their everyday lives. Many of my greatest beer experiences have been talking about beer while sharing beers with people whose opinions I respect and admire. And it's these experiences that I try to capture with the Beer Temple Insiders Round Table. And before I get to my guests, many guests this show, but before I get to them, I want to let you know something about my guests, really about their opinions, and that is their opinions are their own. They're not associated with Lumpin' Radio or any other entity. So just know that. But I think we're going to have a nice little, dancey little background groove going on. So last week it was like the Fraternal Order of Police were having a little party here. Now it's like, I don't even know, but there is a soiree going on. It's the place to be at the Studio A, man.
It's a big deal out
yeah.
there.
But we introduced guests in order of seniority, that being how many times they've been on the air. You, I think, are our clear leader,
Sure.
Mr. Strong, Buster, or I forget which one you are.
I think it changes weekly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Many nom de beers, but Mike Shalau, how are you, man? What's new?
Great. A lot of stuff actually is new. Got some more fermenters in the brewery.
Very cool.
Working on getting the community to agree to let us move into a new building. So.
Very cool.
Yeah, had a couple
Quick
meetings.
technical thing. Are we short on headphones? Well, somebody should take that extra pair and put them on their head, because we have a call-in guest that nobody will know what they're saying otherwise. Okay, so yeah, I think you had talked about it before a little bit, or somebody had. Maybe Kate had mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's probably spilling a lot of beans.
We are producerless for a moment now. Just got up and walked out. That's fine. It's okay.
Tight ship you run here.
I got the dump button.
Yeah, I got the dump button. Yeah, I thought you were really going there. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, you guys will have to share for the time being. What else is new? You got a new hat.
Got a new hat. This is straight from Ireland.
Sweet.
Where you were married at the hat store.
That's true.
You told me.
That's very true.
Yeah, I mean, my friend Dusty or Buster, we're working on some new, not necessarily a guild or like anything specific, but like just like a designation. Working on a specific designation.
Okay.
Methode Doste.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
We have a logo here, which is great for like an auditory medium. But just in case, so everyone who's using Citra hops to make dust is making the same dust. So I don't want people to be, because when you get to the...
It's great. I mean, who designed that for you?
Yeah, I don't want to brag, but it's a really bad Sharpie drawing that I did.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, when we get to like the dust-based economy, you want to make sure you're getting the real deal. You don't want any counterfeit dust or any like quick dusts. You don't want any like kettle dusts. You want the real dust.
The real dust.
Yeah.
Or hop blends or hop substitutions or any.
I mean, maybe a little mosaic's okay, but like that's just hearsay from what I know.
Right. There's been no confirmation as to that.
They won't return my emails, and they're definitely not going to now.
How much time have you guys put? So we'll skip around because we have for the first time in a long time both Dust Brothers in the same room at the same time.
Well, there are many Dust Brothers now, actually. But
Buster Capron,
the 2 OG, yes.
What up? It's your boy Eric.
Yeah.
Facebook Living right
So you guys had a little bit of a falling out, but you guys are back. You're back together.
Yeah, we can. Look at this. Look at him.
Yeah, it was brief. I went through a little bit of a haze craze, but now I'm back on the dust train.
It happens. It happens to all of us, except for me.
Fell off the wagon, but now you're back on the train.
That's right.
All aboard.
Cool. Good.
Yeah.
Anything new with you, Eric? Your boy.
We opened. Well, I can say a little less for me, but for Half Acre, we just opened up our second tap room on the north side up in the Bowmanville neighborhood. So that's open 4 days a week. I think it's going well. We just got a new kitchen menu.
The food there it's insane, insanely good.
You like it?
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that.
Very, very good.
I'm excited to get some neighbors.
Yeah. I'm guessing that it's going to be the wrong side of the alley, so to speak, when those guys move in. But
no, it's gonna be great.
So Spiteful is moving in right next door to you, which is a great segue. We usually don't have segues for guests, but Sir William Charles Moore of Spiteful Brewing, headphoneless, so good luck with that.
Good evening. I will be talking my best radio voice and hope that it carries over the airwaves.
You sound pretty good. What's new with you, man?
Well, I mean, I can't really pin that down, but lots of things. Obviously, working on that, on getting open and being part of that new Bowmanville brewery region. It's pretty serious up there, and obviously, things are happening at a very rapid pace. So it's insane every single day. It's actually our 5th anniversary today. So
is it really?
Yeah, it's 5th anniversary. We brewed GFY today. We racked some. I don't know what you're talking about. We racked some malevolence. We brought down tanks that are just doing all kinds of insane stuff all the time, and obviously opening up that tap room sooner rather than later. And we'll all be excited for that. So I don't really know what to say there. That's it. That's the end of my portion.
Another smooth transition.
Yeah. And then we've got another guest. It's been a while. Mr. Dan Pichet is here. Is that how do you pronounce your last name?
Pichet. Close, yeah, pretty close.
I'm
not
moved
opening,
away.
Yeah, for the first time, I'm now living La Vida Loca in Miami on a regular basis.
Do you hang out with Methode a lot?
Yeah, I do. You know, they sent the balding pale guy down there.
Don't call me that.
No, well, it's
My
me,
name
not
is
you,
Chris. My name is Chris,
it.
and I was not in Menudo. And I also
Wait,
was
you
not.
weren't?
I wasn't, and I
Why
also
are we
wasn't in
friends?
Florida, so I don't appreciate any of this.
Yeah.
How did you just say Florida?
Florida?
I don't know.
I don't know. The correct way.
You need headphones.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get them. I'm sure Jamie, producer Jamie, will be very happy and very calm to get us an extra pair of headphones. Anyway, what is anything else new with you, Dan? Did you fund any new? So for those of you who don't know, Dan is a commercial banker.
Yeah.
You're a banker.
I'm a banker.
But you do some beery stuff
I
from
do,
time
yeah.
to time.
Yeah. I dabble and working on a project now with a group that's looking to get started. And, in a lot of ways, opening a brewery isn't really too different from the majority of other,
It's okay. You're good.
of the other lines of business we do. And, it's just frankly a lot more interesting than talking about manufacturing facilities out in whichever part of the world we're in.
But basically, from a financial standpoint, it's all the same to you.
It's pretty simple.
You're a cold-hearted person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks. And then my final guest is calling in from Austin, Texas. I hope he's there. Let's see. Mr. Jeff Stuffings, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys just fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, cool. It worked. Great.
Great.
We were a little nervous there. We've got some new producers here, but he said he knew what was going on, and he did. So, well done. So the deal is first-time guests introduce themselves. So I will say thank you for coming on, but I'm going to let you tell everyone who you are and what you're about. Preferably in a beer sense, but in any way if you prefer.
Sure. Well, good to hear from you, Chris. I think I last saw you that night. I was in your store for kind of that panel discussion you hosted for us. I guess that was maybe like almost 2 years ago. So, good to be back with you, even if it's not in the same room. My name is Jeff Stuffings, co-founder of Jester King Brewery in Austin, Texas. My brother Michael and I got the brewery off the ground in 2010. We're on the outskirts of town. We're on a ranch, kind of in a rural location. Our brewery is an old machine shop, and we make farmhouse ales. Everything we do is mixed fermentation, some stainless steel, some barrel aged. We maintain a mixed culture. We also do some spontaneous fermentations, and we run a small tap room as well. We sell most of our beer just at the brewery, and that's about it.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on. So we have a couple things that are quite specific to you, and I appreciate you calling in and taking time from your daughter's sporting event. I really appreciate that. I hope she did well. So.
Yeah, she's pretty good. She's on a baseball team. She's the only girl, but she's bigger than all the boys at this point, so she holds her own.
Very, very good. But first, I do want to get to the. What have you been drinking lately? It's a regular segment. If there's anything you've had lately that's been interesting you or that you're excited to try. Mike, do you want to go first, Buster?
Yeah, I had a great beer recently. It's called Zombie Dust.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm surprised you would say that.
I had a vertical of about 7 years or so of it, and one was just as good and better than the last.
No change, just stayed amazing the entire time.
Yeah. The older ones are obviously better,
right?
But, yeah.
Cool.
There's
You know
more
this.
in the market for sure.
Yeah.
This is an amazing thing. You guys are sharing these.
How about, they're sharing the headphones. It's adorable, Eric, and we'll get them.
No one else can see us, so you guys are...
Actually, there's hundreds of people through that window that can see you.
Someone just took a picture of us.
None of them are listening to us, right?
Yeah. Dan, how about you? Anything you've had lately that you've dug?
For me, it was just nice to come back home and try some of the beers that I don't get to have when I'm not locally. So
Like Zombie Dust?
Yes, absolutely. Intravenous infusion of it. So
Yeah.
You're way ahead of me.
Just some of the regulars.
Yeah.
The good old.
Stopped by the tap room and had a few this week. So
let's get this out of the way, Eric. Anything that you've had? I mean, this one specifically, not the whole segment, but
yeah, I had before I was finished with my haze craze, I was out in Denver, Colorado.
This is unacceptable.
And the first thing you do when you get off the plane in Denver is you go to True Brewing. And I had a hazy beer that they make called Decreation. They informed me about the JBU, the Juice Bomb units.
Okay.
Which is, they have one of the nation's leading JBU research and development departments at True Brewing. And, they took me through all the ins and outs of the juice and the haze. And, it was a really educational experience for me.
Is there like a JBU, HBU conversion to like the...
it's really scientific. What do we have, 2 hours? I don't think I can go through the whole thing now.
Okay.
But I will say that their department and their research lab is really at the forefront of the technology and the scientific knowledge. So...
There you go. Forefront of scientific knowledge. Good. Yeah, that's good. It sounds really, really professional. But now that you're not into those type of beers anymore, you're totally off that, and but
also I've had some beer lately called Zombie Dust. It's really delicious.
Okay, cool. How about you, Will? Let me guess. A Sidra from Spain or something like that.
No, that's not beer. That's a common misconception, Chris, and that's not the first time that you've made that mistake. No, actually, last night I was drinking a beer called the Lead Feather, and it's like this black and white can with a bird on it. Pretty original idea as far as I can tell. Quite delicious, though. It's got the drinkability or Moorishness, as it may be to the English among us,
I will go next. I just had a beer right before I came here. It's Dan. You're gonna have to help me with the name of the beer. I want to call it the Red Truck, but it's
the Broken Truck.
The Broken Truck, which is the lambic style blend from. I have to be very careful with what I'm saying. But it's from DeGard. And just had it for the first time. Somebody came into the shop and just opened up a bottle, and it was good. We actually had some Oud Beersel on draft, and we kind of did them side by side, and it was fun to see the similarities of this kind of, American terroir, if you want to call it.
What was better, because beer is about winning.
Right, exactly. Well, that's what I was going to say.
What is the Red Truck, though? I mean,
the Red Truck is from Lost Abbey, isn't it? Oh, that's Red Barn. Never mind.
Okay, everything is confused now.
Aren't you supposed to be the expert on these things? What's going on over there?
The facade is gone long ago, man. It's long gone. But it was tasty. It was. I really like when I get to try American versions of lambics, of like spontaneously fermented stuff, blended, unblended. It's just really neat to see, and there's not a whole lot of them out there. Certainly not that I've tried. I've tried. Oh wow, Dan brought some Duck Goose. But the first one I had, the one that comes to mind for me is Cool Ship. Was the first I had from Allagash, and it was the first that was like, oh my gosh, the Cool Ship Red, the first blend of that they ever did, was incredible. And I think maybe the second I'd ever had was Jester King's Spawn, I believe, which was just like a year and a half ago or something like that I tried that. And that was also amazing just to see, the similarities and the differences between some of these American beers and some of the Belgian beers and stuff like that.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. And by the way, I would totally echo your comment about the Cool Ship beers from Allagash being like just the first American spontaneous beers and that, in the lambic tradition that I ever tasted. And yeah, I've just been consistently blown away by those over the years. Yeah.
That was the first a sour or acidic, whatever you want to call it, American beer that I had where I thought to myself, this could be Belgian. This could be a Belgian lambic or something like that. And it was it's really cool to see that sort of thing. How about you, Jeff? Anything that you've had lately that kind of piqued your interest or just...
I've been kind of going back to some of the classics, really. So, for instance, you mentioned Denver a moment ago. The last chance I had, opportunity I had to try some new beers that I hadn't had before was last month at GABF. And I went to, Bierstadt for the first time there in Denver and had some of their lagers, like they do a beer called a slow pour Pils. They're Helles. They were all just really, really, really well made, and enjoyed those quite a bit.
What was the name of that place? I'm sorry.
Bierstadt. I think it's only like a year or two old, but it's in Denver, and really just fantastic, German style lagers. I also like, I'm surprised there's not more breweries kind of focusing on English style beers in the United States. I mean, when I was in Denver, I went to Hogshead. I had the pleasure of going to Machine House in Seattle not too long ago, and they were doing killer work there. Nothing like too new or super interesting I've been drinking lately, but just seeking out, I'm kind of, I think the pendulum kind of swings back and forth.
Yeah.
And right now I'm just trying to enjoy really well-made classic styles.
Yeah, no, you'd be surprised. Those types of beers are what come up most often in this segment. People from outside Chicago, email me and message me and just say, what is this Dovetail, and why does every single person on your show just bring it up every single week? So, and they're a local kind of German-inspired brewery who does a lot of really classic lagers and stuff like that. So, you are definitely in good company there with not having something, super exclusive. And I just literally happened to have that to guard right before I came, or I probably would have, mentioned a boring old English bitter on cask or something. I
think
that.
That's wrong, though. Having access to lager like Bierstadt or Dovetail makes is super exclusive, because it is pretty much contingent upon. And I mean, look, Austin is no slouch in that regard. They've definitely got some proper lager brewers in the area. But it is exclusive. It's not something that's available everywhere in the U.S. And so, got to give a shout out to the people that are doing it right. It's, anyways.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I think that's kind of what was being said. These traditional, just everyday styles that are being done exceptionally well is fun. I've got people climbing around me, or should we go to our little station break right now? 5. Okay. Oh, wow. He's a true ball buster. Okay, he's old school.
He's like classic Logan.
Yeah, can't go 5 minutes early. So now I'll just
it.
What we will do is I will override this, and I will say, can we go now for real? You're not ready?
Not ready.
Okay. So I guess what I'll talk about is what we'll be talking about in the next segment. We'll come back in a moment. We're going to talk about Methode Traditionale, the new kind of, I guess it's called a guild, or kind of a collective.
Stuffings can probably tell us.
Yes, in the next, you won't say it yet. He's not allowed to talk right now. I should probably mute him.
We're teasing right now.
Yeah, we're teasing. This is called a tease. It's not called stalling for time in any way.
No.
But and then the other thing, which is true, is meaning
this has all been lies.
This has all been a lie, except for what I'm about to tell you. Is there are a lot of other shows on Lumpen Radio that deal with a lot of fun, interesting topics that they're passionate about, just like we are with beer. And I think we've got a couple of those queued up for you to talk about in just a moment, probably 2 minutes or something like that. And you can listen to them. We're all good? All right. We'll listen to those, and then we'll be back in about 1 minute, 90 seconds with more of the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable.
Great.
Talk to you then. And we're back with the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. We're going loose on this show, but that's fine. Those are sometimes the more fun shows. So what we were teasing before, and I'm sure all of you guys were just at the edge of your seat in anticipation,
real cliffhanger.
is this Sour and Wild Ales Guild. I don't know if that's the right term, but I figured I would kind of throw it to you just to kind of describe it, Mr. Stuffings, because we have talked about your Methode Goose, Methode Traditionale here on the show in the past, and I think I don't know if they're directly linked or if one spawned the other, but I thought maybe that you could talk about it. I mean, there's a picture of a whole bunch of people, and you're in that picture, so I mean that makes you a good person
sure,
to talk about it. So
that works. No, well, I mean, at this point, I would say they're two pretty separate things. You know, and we can kind of dive into either one kind of first. But I mean, what kind of, you know, the Sour and Wild Ale Guild, which has been roughly like 2 years in the making, is really just an effort to kind of have a guild that's dedicated to kind of promotion of sour beer, you know, education, quality, just a group of kind of like-minded and brewers that share similar philosophies kind of coming together to, you know, advance just appreciation and quality when it comes to making, you know, really the myriad of types of sour beer. Not to give you like the super long story, but like, you know, it kind of came about back when the Craft Brewers Conference was in Philadelphia a couple years back. There was a good beer hunting panel that was put on that had, I think, you know, like Lauren Salazar from New Belgium and Brandon Jones from Yazoo. And it was really, and Jay Goodwin from the Rare Barrel. And it was just kind of, the name of the panel was like Sour on Sour. Like, can we come up with like better terminology than just like sour beer? Because that, you know, covers such a vast array of different things. And kind of going forth from there, like I just kind of started talking to some other brewers that I really respect, you know, some of the panelists there, some other brewers in the room that day, and we kind of came up with the idea of starting a sour beer guild. And admittedly, it was pretty slow going from there, I think, just due to, you know, people not having a whole lot of free time. But we've, you know, almost 2 years later, have finally kind of, I think, gotten the initial group going. We had our first meeting at GABF this past month. It was actually at True Brewing, already mentioned earlier on the show. And we just invited, you know, it's impossible to kind of, you know, by the nature of just kind of sending out invites for initial meeting, it's, you know, it's impossible to kind of include everyone out there that's making sour beers, of course. But we got a pretty good response. And I would say kind of the three kind of focuses of the organization would be, you know, promoting, you know, education at the consumer level, promoting quality at the industry level, and then also kind of trying to adopt some kind of common nomenclature when it comes to sour beers. I mean, it gets a little confusing when you kind of dive into it with all the different techniques and styles and, you know, methods. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we are. It's still very much in its infancy. We just really have had an initial meeting, and we're in the process of doing some of those kind of, you know, things like establishing a board, creating bylaws.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
A board and bylaws. I mean, so that means you're well past the secret handshake and the pin and all that stuff. So this thing is, okay, so it's going to be like a formal organization or something that it has a membership and stuff like that. So you said it is different from the Methode Traditionale then?
Yeah, that's more of a Jester King thing. So I mean, Sour and Wild Ale Guild, well, I don't want to say it's exclusively a Jester King thing, but I guess we're the ones who kind of created.
You said more of. You didn't say exclusively.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was just, I'll go, you know, I can speak very, very, you know, intimately as to, you know, what has occurred with all that. The whole Sour and Wild Ale Guild thing, you know, the acronym is SWAG. That's kind of more of just a communal thing that Jester King is just, you know, a part of. Yeah, the Methode Traditionale thing. So, man, you know, all the way back in 2013, February of 2013, we did our first spontaneous fermentation. and we did it in a method that was, similar or inspired by lambic. We did the whole, raw wheat and malted barley, turbid mash, aged hops, long boil, cool ship knockout, spontaneous fermentation, blending across multiple vintages, bottle for re-fermentation over, months. And, after 3 years and 9 months went by, we had our first blend. We did, that kind of traditional 1, 2, and 3 year blend in the, inspired by, authentic Belgian goose. And, we were really struggling with, like, what do we call this? Like, I can't help but, like, wanting to have, like, some type of, like, style designation for it. And I think it's long been kind of this issue of, like, what do Americans call, lambic style beer, or really anyone outside of that traditional region of Belgium, like, what do they call lambic style beer? And, this isn't a problem you see with other styles of beers, obviously, triple or Pilsner or IPA. But, for lambic, it's something that's a little bit more, guarded by the traditional producers, and for good reason. So what I did was I reached out to Jean Benoit from Cantillon. I mean, Jester King is sold as part of the Shelton Brothers portfolio. We've been close to Cantillon really ever since we opened, by virtue of having similar philosophies and also being part of the same kind of network of beers that Shelton Brothers creates. And Jean invited us to his brewery to kind of talk it through. And what came out of that discussion was calling that kind of style of beer inspired by lambic made outside of the traditional region, calling it Methode goose. Kind of a play on like Methode Champenois, but in the beer world and for goose. What I the mistake I made and failed to do was not really reach out directly to like the entire kind of traditional lambic community. So after
you just went to Cantillon to Jean Benoit.
That's right. And I mean, Jean was somewhat of a proxy to Dre Fontainen and Oud Beersel and Girardin and some of the other producers, but I never did reach out to them directly.
Yeah, and it's certainly not a homogenous group either. I mean, they don't agree on everything. I mean, I think it's worth noting that their kind of loose guild is Oral, but Cantillon is not a part of that, kind of vocally not a part of that. So it's kind of interesting that even there. You would probably get some differing of opinions, and it might be hard to get a consensus from them, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's exactly what proved to be true. Kind of, I would say maybe 4 or 5 months after, we had called our beer, Methode goose, referring to, beer that was made in the style of a goose, but outside of the traditional region. I got this letter from Heral. It was signed by Frank Bone, but it was from on behalf of the whole Heral organization. That was pretty, at least from my perspective, was pretty aggressive. Basically accusing me personally of trying to co-opt their tradition and profit upon it, and just kind of, I think, stealing their thing, cultural appropriation. I mean, you name it. It was kind of in that letter. And that it wasn't just sent to me personally; it was sent to pretty much all my friends.
Nice.
It was sent to maybe 15 other
high school
American
teachers.
brewers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was kind of an embarrassing situation to deal with, but I mean, I honestly, I mean, I did not want to just kind of go on the attack with them. Like, that's just not my desire in any of this. We're ultimately, like, we're trying to solve the problem of, like, what do we call a lambic style beer without calling it lambic or goose, or just like making clear that it's not authentic, it's not the real thing. Like, what do you call it stylistically? And, I think that's proven to be extremely difficult, and relying on John, who I have, just a world of respect for and just look up to immensely. I still think was a good way to go about it, but unfortunately it did create issues in kind of the broader lambic communities, particularly with Hural. So,
I'm sorry. Go
ahead.
on. Well, let me play devil's advocate here just a little bit, because one question that kind of comes up, and I've talked to people about this, and we've just kind of discussed it, and we all love the beer, and we all think it's like an amazing. We all love lambic and goose, and think that it's really cool that there's American breweries doing it and trying to do it using the same method or using that as an inspiration. But the question that kind of gets posed sometimes is, what is it called? What isn't it called? How do you name this thing? The question is, how important is it to have a specific name for the American version of it, especially when the people drinking these beers are probably people very much in the know? I'm guessing for Spawn, there was probably a lottery or a line or something, and everybody was lined up. And those people all know what this beer is, so do you even need to have a name for it? I mean, everyone knows what it is. You can just call it, our thing, it. Yeah, I mean, do you need? But I think it's a fair question. Like, do you need bylaws and secret handshakes and decoder rings and stuff for something like this? And if so, could you explain why?
Sure. I mean, for us, we in some ways I kind of approached it in reverse, and what I mean by that is, like, I would go to various whether it be a beer festival or other breweries, and brewers would say, here, try my lambic, and just bared no connection at all to kind of this traditional method of making the beer. Beers that were not spontaneously fermented, that were not blended across multiple vintages, that were not even necessarily bottle conditioned, and certainly in many cases were just pitched with lab cultures and still represented as lambic. And I mean,
sure.
I'm not going to name names, but I mean,
some big breweries were doing stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some brewers that I highly respected. And, if you talk to, in my conversations with Jean, he would talk about just how it's kind of like a real problem for them of kind of this misappropriation of lambic. And I mean, what John, said to us, which I'll always be kind of eternally grateful for, was like he said, your beer deserves to be called a goose far more than kind of a lot of the pseudo goose being made in Belgium. And
yeah.
I think that was like a very, very, kind of progressive opinion on his part. And
one that I would honestly agree with, but then why not call it a goose?
Well, I do acknowledge that it's a regional thing. I drew an analogy,
kind of like an appellation, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes in doing this. And I mean, for instance, my kind of like two goals going into this, like, let's find a way to refer to something that was inspired by the lambic tradition, and without actually calling it lambic. And then also, let's not piss off the traditional producers. I mean, that was kind of like the twofold goal. And
you failed. It seems like.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I think as far as the first goal, arguably, Methode Goose, I think was arguably successful in that refers to beer made in the style of a goose, but not ultimately something that is authentic and from the traditional region. But yeah, unfortunately, that kind of plunged headlong into kind of the lambic politics, and unfortunately, really made brewers like Dre Fontanen and Tilkin and Bone really upset about it, which was unintentional. Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to your point on this, but I mean, my motivation was to go and meet with them and say, basically, once I was kind of put on the defensive on this, because it's just honestly not a position I really wanted to be in or had any desire to. So I just said to them, what should I call this? You tell me. I mean, and they said, well, call it method traditional, is what they threw it out, referring to, the traditional method of making lambic and goose. And I'm like, fine,
right.
I'm happy to. So, in many ways, I'm just kind of following their cue on this. I mean, does it need to be called anything at all? Not necessarily. I mean, I think it's important to make a distinction between beers that are spontaneously fermented and ones that involve, mixed cultures or pure cultures. I think that's helpful to beer drinkers. But aside from that, I mean, yeah, I would in many ways agree with you that like it doesn't necessarily need a stylistic designation. I mean, when it comes to the multitude of other styles, well, it's just that styles are perfectly fine. But in this case, there's, I guess the way I would see it stylistically is like, yeah, I think there's like spontaneous fermentation is a broad umbrella. And then from there, you can really get down into a whole myriad of other ways to do spontaneous beer. I think, lambic style beer is just a narrow subset of spontaneous fermentation. Okay. And kind of having a way to like refer to that without being able to use like the L word or the G word, which just makes her all just furious, right. Was kind of the challenge in this. And because, I mean, we make a lot of beers that are not directly, in that lambic tradition. And, we just call them, spawn this or spawn that, like spawn peach apricot or spawn rye or spawn still, referring to just the fact that they're spontaneously fermented. And, we only do like kind of one beer that's truly inspired by Goose, which is our 3-year blend, which for this year, if you look at the label, we're actually releasing it this Friday. It says 2017 Spawn, 3-year blend. I mean, it's just kind of as simple as it can be. I mean, it has the Methode traditional, little logo mark on the back. But, I mean, on the front of the label, it's just calling it what it is, spontaneous beer, 3-year blend.
So then going to and if anyone has anything to say, jump in. I will say that you might be getting a C&D from Mike Shalau, Jeff, because the Methode Dust label that you just showed me looks very similar to...
Ours definitely predates yours. I drew mine this morning.
Yeah. But for the guild then, so what then is it to... It looks like it's there to share information, but also to put the word out about sour beers and to let people know that there is a difference. I mean that. So there. I guess again, is it? I guess what naysayers are coming out and saying is, you just want to make sure that people know that they should be paying more for your beer versus a kettle sour or something like that. Which, to be fair, kettle sours, probably cost a lot less to make, and kind of educating people on, why certain beers cost more and why they take more time and more labor to go into it. But I mean, that is kind of, I think, what people are saying is like they just want to be able to charge more money for their beer. What do you say to kind of those claims?
Well, sure. I mean, if you go back to kind of that, sour on sour event that was in Philadelphia at the Craft Brewers Conference, that was kind of, I think maybe it's calmed down a little bit as, beer drinkers, I think, become more knowledgeable and can kind of delineate between, what is something that's, takes a few weeks at most to make versus something that takes, many months, if not years.
And a couple of years ago, I'm sorry to interrupt, a couple of years ago, there were people making kettle sour beers and charging a lot of money for it. I've seen it, that kind of really go away almost entirely now. But, I mean, I think there was a hot minute where some brewers, again, they'll be named, not be named, were putting out kettle sour beers and charging, $16 to $20 for a bomber of it, or more. And but I don't see that happening as much anymore. I'm sorry, I kind of cut right into your thought, Jeff.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, I think, there was, I would say, certainly a moment in time where that was, pretty frustrating, seeing, 750 ml Cajun cork, beers that were kettle soured being sold for, $17 to $20 and us trying to sell something that was, took 8 to 14 months to make, that was, slowly fermented in oak with mixed cultures. And that's not to say it's a better beer per se. I mean, that's all in the eye of who's ever drinking it. But yeah, that was frustrating to see. But as far as like the guild being like a mechanism to charge like more for beer, I mean, I would reject that. I mean, if you look at kind of like what is being, put out there thus far of like what's the whole purpose of it, it's, let's, educate beer drinkers about, what sour beer is, what it's not, different ways of making it, different styles, different, innovations, trying to promote quality. Because right now, I mean, we're having, I would say, pretty straightforward discussion here, which is awesome. And I'll say that like I kind of see somewhat of kind of a kind of movement in opposite directions. I think you see some of the best barrel-aged sour beers or whatever style of sour beers out there kind of becoming better and better and better. But I think you also see in a kind of a different direction where you're still seeing a ton of beer out there that's just like, loaded with like diacetyl or acetic acid that's almost undrinkable. And so I'll be perfectly blunt. I mean, I when someone says, "Oh, here, try this sour beer," I'm still very gun shy, even at this point. I'm not talking homebrew. I'm talking like professionally made beers. I'm just kind of will like wince in a little bit because like I've just been had so many just poor examples, and so I think quality, trying to increase quality is hugely important, and especially in the climate of and I know, we're not talking about independence versus, multinationals right now, but like, it's been threatening times in a lot of ways. And so I think, having adherence to quality is huge. And then, thirdly, yes, I mean, nomenclature is certainly part of it. I mean, to use an example from, GABF, which we keep referencing, for the competition aspect of GABF, there's a myriad of different styles when it comes to lager beers or pale ales or
a lot of amber categories, which blows my mind that there are literally 4 amber or red ale categories at GABF.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when it comes to sour beers, it's gotten a little better. Like in 2017, it was the first year that like Flanders Red, Flanders Brown, lambic style beers and fruit re-fermentations all were not in one singular category. So, and this isn't just about beer competitions, but I think there's still kind of this jumbled effect when it comes to kind of like what sour beer is and what it's not, and I guess and I'm very leery of in trying to create a little bit more like definition for like what sour beer is stylistically, like not wanting to do so in a method that would like quash any type of creativity either. You were talking about criticism before, and I mean that's some of the I would say that's some of like kind of the industry criticism that's been received is like by trying to kind of create like more kind of like stylistic guidance that it could kind of like impinge upon creativity. And, I'm very sensitive to that because I mean, a lot of the beer we make, I don't think is necessarily, within a particular, classic style. So, I mean, that kind of remains to be seen how that gets navigated. Because like I said, we're like in the super infancy of this. And, I will definitely be like a voice for kind of making sure that creativity is not like quashed and trying to like create stylistic guidelines within sour beer.
I one of the things that I was kind of curious about is if you guys were going to have any sort of like festival or competition, or like you said, you guys have guidelines.
You guys being the guild, you mean?
The guild, yeah. Or swag. Is it swag? I'm sorry.
That's swag. It's all about that swag.
So, I think that two of the segments of beer that are the most exciting to the really excitable beer fans right now.
Oh, okay.
It's these hazy hoppy beers and then barrel-aged sour beers. And when you go to something like GABF, which is championed as the beer festival in America, those styles aren't really represented in competition. They're being poured at the booths for sure, and you can find them around town at events outside the festival. But it's just something that still doesn't seem like it's all the way caught up with, or I would say that the guidelines of like the competition at GABF isn't really caught up with what's going on at breweries year to year. So I would hope that this would be an opportunity for people to kind of flex their muscle and shine a light on all the great beer that's getting made by these breweries in the guild and otherwise.
Was there anything you wanted to say, Dan?
Yeah, as the outsider non-brewer in the room, maybe just the contrarian of myself, I think of Harrell's criticisms, and it's like there's no question that a beer coming from Austin, Texas came from Belgium. And if anything, it's exposing people to a style of beer that isn't all that common. And it almost feels like protectionist trade policy more than it is, trying to ensure the tradition. I mean, I get you don't want someone copying it, but you said yourself, Jeff, there's plenty of producers who are producing, lesser quality lambics in that region. And just because you're blessed to live in that region doesn't mean your product's of a higher quality. If anything, I
think the Troc is in. I'm sure they're in Oral, and they put out a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
I'll just say it. I mean, they do. And they just started putting out their traditional stuff in the U.S. recently, and it's certainly, I personally think it's not up to snuff of a lot of their compatriots, but but it's I don't know.
Everyone needs there needs to be someone weak, I think, in any group to make the groups kind of cohere. But I do think that it's dangerous. I mean, when I think about definitions generally, it's more of a descriptive exercise than a prescriptive exercise, and it's important to have multiple people in the group in order to make it happen. And I feel like that. Still, at this point, the number of voices in the American group are too few to really be strong enough to make an argument. And at the end of the day, there's no reason to take anything from Belgium because really they're not going to stand a chance. Like anyone, if you look historically, that has competed with. I think Bordeaux is a great example. It's not going to stand. Basically, eventually they'll be outstripped and they can have their AOC, DOC, and it's not going to matter at the end of the day. And there's no reason to be a part of that, try to be a part of that tradition, even though you are paying homage to it, for sure, because at some point there are just going to be too many other people that are from a much larger country that care about that sort of thing, and it's unfortunate that's where it is right now. But they really have no other option at this point, especially, and I think that's more for the backwards-looking producers more than Van Roy and some of the other cats. But that's unfortunately not going to end well for them.
Just a little sidebar here for Eric and Mike. Would you rather be descriptive or prescriptive of zombie dust?
I mean, it's both. It's one and the same. It's unique and singular, so it in and of itself is prescriptive and descriptive.
Okay, so you prescribe people.
This is like I view Pilsner. That is the Platonic beer. So there is.
That's a huge mistake you're making, but that's your
okay. No, but I would like to say that the
Are
dust.
you saying the Platonic ideal of beer is not dust?
That's no. I am comparing what the actual Platonic ideal of beer is to what your
dust.
Platonic. Yeah, that's right. The dust.
It's the objective Platonic idea.
That's it. And so after it's been reached, there's no way to help anyone else that's not the dust.
Right. Exactly.
And therefore that distinction is
all
invalid.
I know.
Right. It doesn't.
I remember
it's a tautology. It
so
matter.
that's what I'm saying.
At the Rapier Awards,
I
certainly
that.
didn't
Thank
see
you.
anyone from Weisstefan with a whole bunch of medals around their neck, is what I'm saying. So.
Which is a shame. They should have thousands of.
No,
they should have 1,000 years.
There's no
worth of
higher
medals.
honor than the Rapier Awards,
exactly.
as we all know. So.
And Nick Floyd had
Everyone should be forced to wear their medals, and once they can't hoist them anymore, then they're dead.
He was like the Mr. T or Michael Phelps of beer.
I think he could literally crush me with one hand, so I don't know who you're talking about.
I think it's about time we take a break for 5 or so and come back. And why don't we talk a little bit about the the wine industry and the spirits industry and
Let's not.
and stuff.
Or
not. Okay, never mind. We'll come up with something else. But
your
either
clown
way,
shoes got bought out.
yeah, I did hear. All right, guys, we will see you soon for more of the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable, where we just learned of some new info. New information has come to light, and we thought that we'd break the news here first. Yeah.
Zombie Dust is another one of our pale ales that's got a lot of citra hops, so it's real kind of dank and pretty easy to drink, good balance.
I love Zombie Dust. Zombie Dust all day. Give me as much as they have. I want it. Zombie Dust is fantastic.
I think I'm like the coolest wife ever because we do have a Zombie Dust mural above the kegerator in our kitchen.
I mean, I'm definitely a dust brother, as a lot of people in the Chicago community would say. Like, ISO dust, looking for dust every day. If I see dust on the shelf, even if it's like 3-4 months old, I'm getting a dust.
Well, there you go.
I just want to say a big shout out to that guy.
The third Dust brother.
Yeah, the lost Dust brother.
We have self-proclaimed the first one ever.
I do have a call in to the FBI to see if we can find who this guy is.
So can you tell me the story behind this video? Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. We've been holding on to that for a while. Eric, that's something that you found, and what does it feel like, one, to have found that, and two, that you guys spawned that guy, and three...
Is that a pun?
Yeah.
About spawn?
Oh, spawned, yeah. And he totally trolled that person for making a video about zombie dust.
Why would you think this is trolling for him? Don't you think he just really wants dust?
I think he's a fan of the show, and I want to say hey to that guy.
What's up, that guy?
Please shoot us an email.
Yes. Insiders.
Send us a letter.
Insiders at craftbeertemple.com. Let us know your name, your brothers want to meet up for a dust.
We'd love to share a dust with you.
The Brotherhood is growing.
Be very disappointed.
I think that is the good news. The Brotherhood is growing. It's strong, and it's getting stronger.
We're just building our
I believe that video was filmed at Dark Lord Day down at Three Floyds.
Oh.
So I just want to say,
we should talk about
if you go down there again, if you could bring back a 6-pack for me, I'd really appreciate it.
Well, I also think
your ISO.
This is a great time to talk about our Dark Lord extension that we're doing. So some acceptable amount of space outside of Dark Lord, which is probably
we're doing a pop-up shop.
Yeah, a pop-up shop of all dust related.
Dust Dust Brotherhood. Find our table. We will be.
Is it a guild?
It's not a guild. We have no bylaws.
Or the Brotherhood.
It's absolutely
it's
a Brotherhood.
Brotherhood.
I think. I mean, we're still working with some designers right now, but from what I understand,
they're dope though.
Our line of merchandise is coming along, and I've seen some of the designs. They're pretty impressive.
We got one right here. Actually, it's a
early prototype of the.
Just imagine that
it's going to be
shirt
on the left sleeve. That's going to be embroidered in gold.
Mm-hmm. It's like a pocket tee.
Right, absolutely. So, Dark Lord Day 2018.
But we only have 7 of them.
Yeah,
it is.
They're going to be rare. It's going to be rare, and you're going to have to grab it while you see it.
Yeah. There'll be 7,000 on the black market, but there's only 7 for sale. So,
right.
Well, then we're going to do a collaboration.
I will
with
say
Supreme.
that what started out as you trolling me on Instagram.
That wasn't trolling. That was just earnestness.
Have you ever been...
you now have
a fan
of
something,
I have.
So passionately that anytime you see it online, you have to comment on it.
You have to put
you have to
15
say
or 16 eyeball emojis.
If there's not at least 5 emojis, it's irrelevant as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
right. So that's how you guys formed. Was and we haven't really told the backstory. Maybe we should just leave it unspoken.
That was on the lost episode. I'm sorry to anyone listening who was hoping. I mean, I called in last week and we went through for basically the whole 2 hours and spoke about the.
All I'm saying is the fact that this radio show had that guy troll a legitimate television producer.
Didn't troll. You're saying
in the moment that the presence of mind to be like, this guy's asking me about zombie dust, I'm immediately going to troll him. The producer being so clueless that he then put it on in the video.
Did no
and
research
I
at
think
all.
the segment was called Chicago's Dust Brothers or something.
And
And
it said, "Are you a hashtag Dust Brother?"
yeah.
No, was that the title of the video?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you a hashtag Dust Brother?
Get out of here.
That is, I mean, it's
It's iconic. It resonates with people. It's
the
not
number
surprising.
Of
It's dust.
things that had to happen for that, and then for that video to make its way to our eyeballs is
Right. Do you guys know if Danny's seen that? Because
Danny
really,
at Three Floyds has seen it.
She really loves the whole thing we're doing.
Yeah. I think she thought it was just fine.
I mean, honestly, Eric, can you say that we've single-handedly or dual-handedly or quad-handedly
Yeah, quad-handedly. Yeah.
upped the demand for dust by 1,000, 2,000 times?
I was
just
going to
saying
say
that-
600 times.
But you're just saying that
But 1,000 might be
because
more accurate.
You're doing it for your own purposes because you're sitting
What
on
are
a
you talking
stockpile.
Well, of course I have a stockpile of dust, but also
If you think Mike drinks any of the dust that he accumulates, he does not. He cellars it all.
you have to cellar it. It's
Yeah.
not good until at least 17 years in, I think. That's what I've heard. And I keep it at pretty ideal cellar temperature conditions.
83.
The third. No, it's probably a little higher
Third
than that.
shelf of your closet.
Third floor apartment, radiator heat in my closet.
I would just
next
like
to
to
the
say
radiator.
I hate both of you. Just as
All right, let's move on from the
Well,
Dust
that's too
Brothers.
bad. You're just dustless and jealous.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm squeaky clean, dustless indeed.
All right. So here's something that we talked
Right.
about on
Clean
the
brother,
lost,
then.
yeah, on the lost episode that I thought was interesting. And thanks for sticking around, Jeff. I really appreciate that. And,
Of course.
and even
Jeff,
sticking around,
I'm
and
really sorry
Yeah,
about
we,
that
we
whole
both, we
10
both
minutes.
apologize for
he
wasting
might
your
have
time.
Yeah,
You were so
people
nice when I
listening
went
might
down
have thought
there.
I
We
just
just
Apology
wait.
not accepted.
through the break.
That wasn't
but I
for
meant
you,
the
Will.
last 3 minutes. But something we talked about on the last episode, and it didn't really get to too many people's ears. So for the people who are listening live, I apologize. We're going to go over it again. But it's just something I wanted to talk about. And this is, some of this discussion that's been going on. I first heard about it in craft circles in that high-end video where people were talking about, while we're squabbling about what's craft and what isn't, there's, I think, an armada of wine and spirits people coming over to attack us, and we're going to be sitting there like we have muskets or something. And I've seen it now getting reported more and more that, dissension among ourselves is only, helping wine and spirits to bring down craft beer or hurt craft beer. And I've been seeing it kind of picking up steam from the I don't know if you want to call it the talking heads of craft beer or some of the influencers of craft beer, stuff like that. And I just wanted to, personally for me, I was like, wait, let's just pump the brakes here and think about this and talk about it a little bit. Maybe that is the case, maybe that isn't the case, but to me, I don't know if I see that as certainly the biggest problem, which is how it's being I see it almost being used as like a weapon against people saying, I don't agree with this or I don't agree with that within craft beer. And also, I don't know if it even affects, the kind of independent brewers, the majority of independent brewers that, certainly that video was directly addressing because it was talking about this independent label that the BA brought up, and I know that you guys at Jester King, Jeff, were early and very vocal adopters of this. So one, I just wanted to kind of throw it out there and see if spirits and wine are definitely up in the States. Spirits is up globally, and beer is down in the U.S. and also globally. But beer's been down in the U.S. I think it's been on a downward trajectory for 3 decades, honestly, but by volume. Do you see it as a potential threat to craft beer as you or flavorful beer or however you want to define it, that's relevant to you guys, or even what you guys hope to become, or maybe the guys a little bit above you. I'm trying to go as big as possible and still staying relevant, because we've got a lot of rather small breweries represented here. I mean, Half Acres and Pipeworks are not tiny, but I don't know if am I being clear here with what I'm asking?
Well, yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I mean, the short answer for me would be like absolutely not. I mean, the whole notion that like wine and spirits are threatening to, craft beer, especially at like a very, small level, like even down, below, how the BA defines it, regional level down to like, just breweries that are making, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 barrels a year. I mean, I know that video and the quote, you referred to actually comes from one of my close friends, despite the fact that, his brewery was acquired by AB InBev. Yeah. And, I mean, it's just a total red herring. I mean, they're essentially taking, their legacy brands, which they do feel the pressure from in terms of wine and spirits, and like projecting that upon, independent brewers, small independent brewers, saying like we should rally together. I mean, I don't know if we're on, what the rules are on these airwaves, but I mean, that's just, I won't say what I mean. It's insulting, to put it politely.
Yes, there you go.
So
good choice.
We serve. I think, we really take pride in trying to have a really excellent lineup of wine at Jester King, and if the law allowed us, we'd do the same thing for spirits. I mean, we have just appreciation and respect for anyone doing things that are really, wonderful tasting and smelling and thoughtful and have a coherent philosophy behind them.
What's up, Mike?
I think that's like the biggest point, is that like it's consumers seeking out like points of view and flavorful beverages more than it is like anything else. So it would be interesting to see like where that decline is coming from, rather than just like, oh, beer's declining in general. It's like, oh, so I don't see a lot of people that come on this show whose breweries are shrinking. We may not be making 1 million barrels a year, but like everyone is making more beer, and people are finding it, and those consumers find also typically like very interesting wines, very interesting spirits, high-end spirits. Like I know like Eric, someone you work with, Lee, drinks a bunch of natural wines. I love natural wines as well. Like those are the same types of like people, like Cedra from Will. Like it's the same idea of like we're searching. You're looking for like interesting. You're open to experience type people. If you ever were to think that those people someone who is like that would only consume beer or only consume wine, and that there's like wouldn't be crossover in that, as this segment were to grow, that would be a very simple misunderstanding of how people go about finding things they enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, if someone gets
totally.
There will be more and more people that have that type of outlook, I think, on beverages moving forward, but I still don't think that's going to be a majority of the populace. There's just too much. I mean, you really have to be a dedicated booze nerd in order to get into really some of the more obscure things, and I think the kind of notion that's going to become widespread is probably incorrect.
I didn't say that.
Based. No. I do think that it is going to become more widespread, but I also think that.
What is?
Well, just the idea that, look, there is no one really. The number of people in America that understand the wealth of booze that is available to us is so infinitesimal. Yeah. It's ridiculous in any particular category. It's like you find a wine nerd and they know this about wine and that, and like it's so focused, but there is just so much that is available to us. It's just almost shameful.
I don't know. I mean, I think that people do kind of they have their preferences, but they step outside, and there are people who love fine wine, but then they go over and they'll drink Heineken. I mean, I remember going to 3-star restaurants and having this insane wine list.
Autobiography hour, Chris.
No, but then having 3 beers, but those days are gone.
I think that consumer is not dead, but
dying.
Yeah, dying for sure. Where you go to places like that and they have a very interesting beer list, even if it's not like the best beers in the world. It's like
at least there's thought.
Yeah,
which is why Pilsner, the platonic beer, will never die.
I
the
don't know what-
platonic beer. I've said it here. I've said it before. That is how you win beer.
How many videos do you have of people that are saying they're Pils bros? I don't think.
Pills Bros.
Like, we're winning it. You can win in your heart, but we're winning in the court of public opinion. So it's like whatever you want to say. Will
wrong and wrong again.
All right,
you have no evidence to prove me wrong. It's
the
just
other
like,
thing
it's just disappointing.
I wanted to say is
thought I had a word the
I'm
adversary.
curious, where if wine and spirits are taking away dollars from beer, what segment are they also taking it from? I mean, my guess is that they're taking it from the 90% of beer that is, this, as Will likes to call it, industrial lager. And, that's, if anything, I think could see it circling back around to craft or something like that.
I think that's kind of like an undulating pool of all time of people who are like, whatever the thing that is in vogue that I will drink with dinner, that's what I'll consume. But what we're seeing is there's a groundswell of like people who are seeking out interesting things. So maybe beer is losing right now to wine and spirits at like a more mass-produced end, not necessarily hugely mass-produced, but in like interchangeably, like we're a brand, we all have alcohol in our products, different levels and different things you can do with it. But I don't see this as like a thing that's affecting anyone who's truly trying to make interesting beers.
I know there's a lot of people on the higher ups,
the higher end?
The high end and the higher ups who are very concerned about it. I mean, I was reading on Brewbound about the National Wholesalers Conference, and there were C-level executives who were just talking about how we need to pull together, that we really need to fight for this, and it seemed to be a theme of this convention.
Exactly what you said is like it's the whole National Wholesalers Convention.
Right.
They're selling, like a widget. But that's not what we're making.
My favorite thing about this particular article is that none of their strategy involved, let's just make better beer. That was not a part of the strategy. Right. That's not something that they ever identified as potentially a problem. Maybe our beer sucks. Maybe we can't hang with the German producers, which is 100% true.
I mean, I know a couple of beers that can hang with German producers. Maybe like Dust.
Listen, we'll talk after the show.
Yeah,
we're talking right now, bro.
I think that it's funny that it's kind of oblivious to the problem to me, which is they're like, we need more occasions, we need a larger share, we need more acceptability. It's like, look. What are you going to do? You are the number one most consumed alcoholic beverage in the world. What do you want, you whiner? You are absolutely despicable to think that you can't. You've been given this and that you're just going to squander it because we need more sports games. Come on, it's absolutely shameful.
They did talk about the weather and the sports.
Oh my God, the weather. That must be really hard for you. The weather. Pizza. If only the weather. If it were a little warmer. Hey, why don't you? I can't go.
When you talk about things like that affecting like your sales, you're talking in an incredibly macro sense of the idea of what a category is, and that just precludes a lot of what we feel about how we're making things.
Well, the thing that kind of when I started looking into beer sales in the U.S. and how they've been declining for a long time, and I think craft has been kind of bolstering it, buoying it, certainly in terms of dollars, because people it just costs a lot more than macro beer or whatever you want to call it. Sure. But there's also the side of things. It's been falling for 20, 30 years because everything's become so consolidated and homogenous. Right. Is that people don't want to drink the same thing all the time, and there's more interesting flavors out there. There's more interesting, thought-provoking alcoholic beverages to have, which is why craft hasn't been shrinking. Now, it's been slowing down, but what's up, Dan?
No, I was just thinking, when I think of the person who just kind of drinks the same beer his entire life, I think of my dad. he's somebody who would come over to my house with a variety of wine, spirits, and beer, and bring his own beer, and be like, "Oh, do you have anything good in the fridge?" Haha. But even he started to branch out because he's like, "Oh, well, this is actually kind of good in his curmudgeon-y type way." But that's really what it is people realize there's more to the universe than just, when I was in Munich, you have people who drink every style, like Paulaner and down the line. But, here we have such a wealth of products. Sorry, I got distracted there.
Yeah, Edmar is like just stuffing food into his face.
He got to go to the hummus bar.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to the hummus bar.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, so even, my father's in his 70s is branching out finally. But that's the consumer base, right? Their consumer is changing.
Right. I think that even the pale lager drinker will appreciate the
Let me guess.
best.
A German Pilsner.
No, hey, listen.
Dust.
It doesn't necessarily.
I think they
be
would
made
like
in
Dust.
America, but I'm just saying.
But I think about like what those categories actually became. So beer became one thing plus imports.
Yeah.
And then wine became maybe two things if you really want to narrow it down. Maybe three if you're counting like bubbly things.
But what?
And then spirits was such a broader category.
You know what I saw on TV last night? I was watching the World Series, Game 7.
Oh, yeah.
And
I know where you're going with this.
saw a commercial for Ballast Point Sculpin.
Point. Yep.
Which
I saw it too, yeah.
I really was beside myself. I could not.
Why
could
were
not
you
believe
beside
it.
yourself?
I know that.
I was
go
shocked
ahead,
too.
Jeff.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Both the Ballast Point ad and the Angry Orc blew me away. Sorry.
Gotcha. It's okay. We got you. We got the dump button. I'm on it. You were blown away, you were saying.
Yeah.
Is Burke a swear word?
I'm sorry. I just,
okay.
I didn't want to steal your point there, but
Yeah.
Go for it.
Just seeing, I mean, Ballast Point, I kind of get it,
But
I mean,
why does it blow you guys away?
It blows me away for. I'll just say at least one thing for me that blew me away was, they were saying their whole basis of the commercial was, our beer is almost perfect. We have 97. We have a 97 rating on Beer Advocate. No, I bet that the 90% of the people who are drinking macro lagers have no idea what Beer Advocate is.
But they know what those numbers are.
They know what,
like,
right.
They
know
like
what
my dad,
rating on
my
bottled
dad,
wine advocate
who,
Robert
my
Parker,
dad,
you
who
know?
I
I mean, it's a wine
right.
thing.
But he once went into a liquor store in Connecticut and asked, "Do you have Westfalen 12?" No, you don't. Okay. Do you have? And then this was the next one on the list at the time. Zombie dust.
Right. Oh yeah. People used to do that in my shop too. You don't see that as much anymore.
Right.
The funny.
But those are resources for people. They do mean something to some people, and then you have to get past a certain point to be like, numbers don't mean that I like that.
And also that these were reviews by completely unvetted people. I mean, it's
Right.
yeah. I mean, you could get into it, but that doesn't really matter.
It's the internet.
And
Yeah.
sour beers always got whacked harder than anything else because, like, oh, I don't like it. It's sour.
To defend Will, I think Pilsner got whacked pretty hard in
Well,
those
there's-
categories too. What's up, buddy? I got
There's
you.
no lagers or pilsners
whacks pretty hard
with
over
high
Pilsners.
ratings on either of those websites.
Right.
For the most part, we were looking up the other day. Actually, it was a couple of months ago. We were looking on, I believe it was Untapped, to see to make sure there was an umlaut over the O in Kolsch, and the top rated Kolsch on there was from Treehouse. Which
Did it have lupulin powder in it?
might
Probably.
have. And I'm not trying to take
I had a
anything away
Kolsch from Trillium, honestly, and this is in the same vein of what you're talking about. I mean, it tasted like every Trillium beer I'd ever had. I mean, it tasted
Right.
like a super duper hopped pale ale to me.
I mean, those things were great for getting people into beer and having a resource for people to go to and have a community
Yeah.
for people to talk about it when it was like, maybe several thousand people across the country were really into beer. But at a certain point, there's a turning point where it's like a disservice to people where it's not possible that 75 out of the top 100 beers are all over 8% alcohol. And are like 20% of them are
subjective.
barrel
I mean,
aged, and
it becomes a
90% of
listing
them
of-
are hoppy.
Yeah.
It's just not. It can't be true.
It's exclusivity.
Well, it's and it's just like it's a subset of people. To these people, this is what it is. And by the way, I don't want to knock Trillium or Trillium's Kolsch.
No.
My
Or
point
Treehouse's
being,
Kolsch.
Yeah,
yeah,
no
or
one-
Treehouse's Kolsch. I'm sure they're great beers.
Right.
That's not what I'm
and
trying
it's
to
like
do
it's
here.
it's more being like they have done an incredible job of making great beers in other places that people really care about on those websites, and so it bleeds over into like how people perceive their beers that aren't like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's kind of a problem of drinkability, and I would like to reiterate this particular point. And there's a good reason for that. I think that it's even true for judging that frequently it's more interesting to have a beer that's really intense and makes its case with very few ounces. But at the end of the day, the beers that really count in the world are the beers that people can sit down and have a few pints of, and they're so few and far between. Right. And those type of beers, like Pilsners, are really okay.
Are you saying that you can't have a few pints
I'm tying
of
it back in,
Zombie
but I'm
Dust?
just listen to me. It is the
You've
truth.
lost your head, son.
Having an eye for elegance and for drinkability is actually what makes a difference at the end of the day for people who are regular drinkers, and that's why I advocate for a half-acre Leadfeather.
There's a problem of sorry, Eric's got two microphones.
I just wanted to say, it was just
literally talking to two microphones at once.
One of the reasons that it was most eye-opening to see a Sculpin commercial and what we're just talking about is, you don't see a ton of wine commercial. Sure, that's fine. But you don't see a ton of wine commercials out there, and they're continuing to grow. You don't necessarily see a ton of bourbon and whiskey and spirits commercials out there. You see some of them, sure.
Matthew McConaughey drinks wild turkey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But they do make sense. There's a difference there, though.
So
yeah,
I think that to me at least, it made me wonder, like, all right, well, what are the channels these guys are taking to grow? And, for me, seeing the way the whole segment's playing out and things are shifting back and forth like they always will with dollar share between the three, is Ballast Point putting a commercial on during the World Series really going to, move the needle for them all that much? Or Constellation putting a commercial up for them going to move the needle all that much? I don't really understand why they would do that, besides that they have a big marketing company who's probably chomping at the bit to get the word out there.
Well, it's interesting to watch the bifurcation of what's happening, where like that is playing in the old school beer ball game of like, we're going to have bikini babes and just having an ad like that is that visible, versus like we're all making artisanal products over here, and like you could, like that's more the wine idea. So
and
like,
you never know. I mean, you can have a campaign like The Most Interesting Man in the World that like explodes, helps explode an entire category. I mean, that has helped Mexican lager a lot. So you never know if something's going to catch on.
And it's also interesting to be like, that whole Matthew McConaughey thing is like, that distillery makes some of the best whiskey you can buy. Like, but do you think Matthew McConaughey being like, I drink wild turkey, is moving the needle on Russell's Reserve at all?
He's also got a piece of that, too. He's got a piece of the action.
Yeah, that's how he said he wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, this is like 7 years ago, watching like an NFL game and seeing an ad for Budweiser American Ale, which I think was kind of just like amber ale, yeah.
It's one of those four
the commercial, like, to a mainstream NFL, like millions of people audience, was touting like Cascade hops and caramel malts, and I remember watching that and thinking, like, this is great. Like, they're actually introducing people to like ingredients and flavors in beer that are ultimately going to lead them away from the macro brands, and now, like, I'm not so confident in that, where they're just kind of like reacquiring what they maybe has left them. So
well, they're not dumb in that way. Like, they knew that that's what that would happen. Well, like, if we try to compete in this way, it's the way we've never actually competed before. So we compete on price, we compete on consistency. We don't compete on the flavor of our beer.
There's it's an interesting segue into the letters, and I know we are a little heavy on this acquisition, ABI, stuff like that, but I wanted to talk. Sam wrote us a letter, and we mentioned that the missing Dust brother needs to write us a letter. If anyone wants to write a letter about anything that they've heard or something that they want to talk about,
so if you like
it's
Pilsner
insiders
or
at
whatever.
It's insiders at craftbeertemple.com. There's also you can send an actual letter. It's been a long time since someone sent us a letter. 3219 South Morgan Street. And that's Chicago, Illinois, 60608. Edmar has, yet again, crashed the show. What did you want to say, Ed?
I came down here because I have great news.
What's that?
There's a handwritten
Clown
letter
Shoes is
up in the
finally
office.
sold.
Yes!
Yeah, it was addressed to the Co-Prosperity Sphere. A letter was written to the show.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Late
Big
breaking
news.
That's
Big news.
Did you
And
not get?
look at that
You didn't
the
bring,
last handwritten
bring the
letter we
letter?
got
Sent
came
it-
from
oh.
Hawaii. So this one better come from really far away.
Very far away.
Good.
Portland.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Portland,
Oregon or
Hawaii.
Maine?
Yeah,
Read it
Yeah.
sometime.
We will read
if I
it.
can find it.
Yeah.
That summarizes
So
this
and we
whole
are
network.
the archive is running, right? Are we double, triple sure? Okay, good. I'm a little gun shy.
This is
so
when we
anyway,
talk about clown shoes getting
yes,
bought out by Harpoon.
Yes. No. So anyway, Sam
Clown shoes.
from Raleigh, North Carolina,
The shoe
wrote
finally
us
dropped.
a letter. Listen, guys.
The other clown
God,
shoe
it's,
finally
you're
dropped.
going off the rails.
Chris has the talking
Sorry.
stick.
Okay.
There's a lot of barrel-aged beers all over the place.
All right. So,
Wait till next
Sam writes, I live in Wicked Weed's largest market, and as you can imagine, the local reaction in the aftermath of the buyout was predictably hysterical. Beer Facebook groups became a continuous dumpster fire of Limerita pernicious IPA memes and biblical condemnations of the brewery. Many bottle shops issued full-page statements on why they would never serve Wicked Weed again, others justifying they would continue to do so. Even now, months after the sale, the chatter has tamed down quite a bit. Multiple times per week, an innocent beer drinker will post a picture of Wicked Weed beer and that they are enjoying on a Facebook group, only to have the comment section inevitably turn into a blank show. From my perspective, it has been difficult to tell if the sale has had a tangible effect on sales locally. Their beer is certainly still widely available on draft and in packaging. Anyway, this past weekend I had my first glimpse into that as a bottle shop had their second annual, quote, Wicked Weed Brew Pub experience featuring 28 tap takeover that included their full Angel series and many other rare or brewery-only releases. The place was packed, just like any other Wicked Weed tap takeover has been in the past 3 years. I waited in a long line of beer bros for a timed tapping to pay $15 for a 10-ounce pour of red atrial. Rest assured, I overheard on multiple occasions throughout the day that, quote, all this beer was brewed before the buyout. Now I can sleep at night. Cheers,
I'm glad they know
Sam
the brew
in
schedule.
Raleigh, North Carolina. And I think, Dan, you were at Wicked Weed recently, right? You told me that you were there and it was packed, right?
Yeah, it was just kind of happenstance. We went on vacation in Asheville for the 4th, and it was, I was listening to the show, and as everyone's talking about the sky falling, and the Airbnb we were staying in was right around the corner from Wicked Weed, and every night I walked by there, it was no one noticed.
Yeah.
Because the majority of people don't even know that breweries can be bought by other breweries. I mean, it's just... you just think about it. When I talk with my customers, I'm like, I am not the person you want to sell beer to because I'm way down in the weeds. I think of like my dad or my sister more so. But yeah, the majority of people just have no idea that this is even going on. We think it is the world to a lot of us, but not to the majority of people.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Nobody
don't
cares about your
question
suffering.
that at all. I will kind of chime in and I've had some insight into kind of how their kind of Funkatorium bottle releases have kind of gone since the acquisition, and the hype and kind of people showing up has largely dwindled from what I understand. So I think it kind of like that maybe kind of hardcore beer geek level, which I know was not the whole point of the acquisition. Like that's not who they were targeting and trying to buy the company. But I would say that has definitely taken a hit. But you know what? That'll, I'm sure, be supplanted with those same beers that might have sold out at the Funkatorium now being, in every kind of bottle shop in practically the country. So I'm sure, on a volume level and dollar level, it'll only increase from where it was, even if, kind of the business model in which I think they were operating, which is more kind of the Funkatorium releases were like purely these on-site things, long lines. I think those days are kind of gone because of the acquisition.
Because of the acquisition, or because there's more going on, or you think, whoa, some serious bass coming out of Studio A. Okay, anyway. So you do think, Jeff, that it was a direct result of the acquisition, that there has been a tangible effect, at least to one part of their business, even if it has been way superseded by growth in other areas. And Dan, feel free to jump in here, too.
Yeah, I saw it. Obviously, I live in South Florida now, and Constellation bought Funky Buddha a few months ago, and I've already seen as soon as that got announced, just the drop off in interest, the drop off in demand locally, and it doesn't surprise me at all if that's going on with Constellation, because there's a segment of the population, specifically the segment of the population that would go and get in a line to go wait for beer, who, if the stock is down, so to speak, then it just doesn't make sense to go spend the time doing it.
Right. Well, and I think you think of these like you can think of people, and like these things, people as like a bullseye of like the center is these beer nerds who show up for on-site only sour releases, and then there's another ring of people who drink the, those beers plus also Pernicious or whatever, and there's other people outside of that who only know Pernicious and they only know the things that they know. And then what's happening is big companies are buying these breweries to essentially extract the core of that in hopes to feed the larger target, like the larger ring around that, and thinking there's more people in there.
I was thinking the same thing.
I agree with that.
When they roll out into each new market and Wicked Weed starts hitting the shelves, people in each place are going to be getting excited about it.
Yeah.
And, most people are going to have no frame of reference to know, like, oh, this cool barrel-aged sour beer that I've heard about, 2 years ago on some online forum or whatever, like, I actually get the opportunity to drink it now.
Yeah.
I think those people will be excited to try those beers.
In some ways, they should be excited, right? I
Sure.
mean, it's a new product for them. They get to try something. Almanac came, 2 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
Roughly? And I remember when they came to market, it was Almanac, wow, this is from California. We never see this out here. And the whole thing about how they wanted it cold stored the entire way here. And, there were articles written about it. And regardless of who were to own either of those breweries, like, it's still interesting for the consumer, and also that can lead to other things. Like, most people haven't discovered how deep the rabbit hole goes, and then maybe they can make the determination, I want to support the independent brewers locally, but they're not even conscious that there's a decision to be made yet.
Yeah. I mean, and we're also we're very lucky to live in a city where there's every level of what you want to get from anyone as being made by a local producer,
because that's something else that people
at a very high level,
because that's something else that people have written letters about, insiders at craftbeertemple.com, and that is that you guys talk a lot about this, but where I live, I cannot get anything but maybe a few larger independent breweries, and then a lot of these buyout beers. And hey, if Golden Road shows up and it's fresh, or if Wicked Weed shows up and it's fresh, I'm gonna jump all over it. But I feel bad. Like one person wrote and said, I feel bad. What should I do? Should I drink the old out of code or near code examples of an independent beer, or should I drink the fresh beer from ABI and feel bad about it? What should I do? And I think the people who were on at the time were like, dude, just drink what you want, man.
Right.
Drink what tastes good.
There's nothing to feel bad about. I mean, the whole idea is like we do this because we enjoy it. Like, you're kind of a slave to your options, right? And if you're in a market where you're not as well served as we are in Chicago or other parts of the country, then you drink what you like. I mean, this is supposed to be fun.
I would like to call it right now.
I've
we are entering the golden age of Chicago
Dust.
beer.
Oh,
well,
sorry.
yes, but of Dust for sure. But certainly, I think that we are looking at the best that it probably ever will be. And if you're going to have a time to care at all about beer in Chicago, this is it. Like, this next 6 months is going to be absolutely
it's going to be much longer than 6 months.
Absolutely insane. No. Yeah. It's entering the golden age. And when this happens...
Are you just saying that because your brewery is opening?
No, call to actions are not allowed.
No.
Here, so
this is not about anything other than I'm just stating facts. That's what I do. I'm a fact stater.
Yes.
So
what's up?
No.
You guys.
I'm just saying. So as the resident outsider who now lives La Vida Loca in Miami.
With Methode.
So I came back. I've been back a few times, Chris. I try to stop by when I'm in my old neighborhood. I can think of how much has changed in the city. New buildings going up in my neighborhood, etc. But yeah, I see it from the outside now. Like I don't get the benefit of being here. Chris, I told you, like, I listen to your show every week and I get homesick. I'll be walking around listening to podcasts and I'm just like, I kind of miss being here. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, I've been following craft beer. I appreciate the self-congratulatory applause there. Yeah. But no, the Chicago craft beer scene, and I follow a national scene in a lot of ways. it's improved a considerable margin since I moved a year ago.
Okay.
And I haven't been gone that long, and I still have family here. I'm back fairly regularly. It has improved. You guys are moving up to the northern district of the craft beer, with Half Acre and with
you guys are in Wisconsin
Spiteful
now,
up there, practically in Wisconsin. And there's other areas of the city, and there's plenty of other options. There's never been more options, and in some ways, it's nice to see. It's refreshing. Because Chris, I mean, I know it might be the hot take of my discussion here. I told you last summer that I think Chicago fell behind, and I mean compared to other parts of the country, for the people who might follow what's hot nationally, I think Chicago fell behind a year ago, and I think Chicago's caught up.
Okay.
I mean,
there you go. What's up, Jeff?
I know. I mean, kind of from my outsider's perspective.
This is the insider
I think,
Sean table.
Maybe like 5, 6, 7 years ago, I think Chicago maybe was a little behind, but I think kind of somewhat to your point. I mean, I think over the last 3-4 years, you guys have done amazing things with beer. So now I look at Chicago as a hotbed of really excellent beer. Where, like I said, when we were getting going in like 2010, I would not have pointed in that direction.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's great about happening in Chicago right now is that Chicago's always been, I really believe, the best in the country at hospitality aspect. You go to like simple restaurants here, and they're out of this world, hospitable and amazing. And so the places that produce beer are now catching up to that aspect of Chicago, where the hospitality is as good as the production as well. So the environment you're drinking in and the time you're having is totally enthralling and enhancing what you're doing. Like, just look at like what you guys are doing up at Half Acre, what you guys are going to do at your tap room, like Spiteful. Like, they're going to be some of the best places to drink in the city, and they're actually at the production point. So that leads the way for how people should handle your beer in the rest of the city when they got to live up to what you're doing there. So I'm excited for that.
Sorry, I was reading a note, a little note. It says,
or what you're doing at Beer Temple. It's like one of the most hospitable places to be. Let me watch a weird Yankees playoff game in the back room. It's great.
There you go. I think they're listening to the CBS guys, the Chicago Beer Society, is listening to the show right now. So hey guys, thanks for coming out and listening to me. Let me be self-indulgent. So it's about that time. We do have a final word. If you guys want to say anything in closing, I want to thank all my guests: Mike Shalau, Dan Pichet. There you go. Dusty Capron, something. Sir William Charles Moore, Jeff Stuffings. I mean, I guess Ed, you're a guest now too. You don't get a final word, though. So anything you want to say about anything, Mike?
Can we do calls to action to fake things?
Yeah.
Don't exist? All right, check out our booth outside of Dark Lord Day. We'll be selling a lot of Supreme co-branded merch with, just kind of hyped up, like shoes, Yeezys with the Dust logo on them. T-shirts with Nick Floyd drinking a Dust with Supreme on it. Just a lot of stuff you guys want. Wow. So check it out.
Okay, and it's going to be a pop-up.
Send your mules. We really don't want to see you enjoying the
mules
items.
only.
Mules only, please.
Grand mules, the old ones too.
That's right.
Yeah,
like actual mules.
Okay, so only mules.
Like
I like that
donkeys,
idea.
yeah.
Turning it on its head.
That's right.
We don't want to see the end drinker, just the mule.
We're a very literal and ironic,
cool,
at the same time type of group.
All right, Dan.
So I'm going outside the box completely on this one, and since I can't geek out about Dust or pills necessarily, I was fortunate enough to have coffee with a colleague in the accounting industry today, and Chris, we talked about this on our way down, and for the people who run breweries or run operations, I learned about something new today that I was completely unaware about. Cost segregation, because this is clearly where this is going, is to
I think this
tax
is
code.
A nice thing for you to
but
talk
hang on,
about.
No, I think there's some relevance. Give me a second.
Yeah.
This idea of as the banker in the room, that when breweries go in, when operations go in, that you invest a lot of money in a lot of things that are depreciated over a long period of time. Cost segregation is simply put a way of pulling money out of the walls and accelerating part of your depreciation. and basically realizing a tax benefit over 5 to 7 years instead of 39 years. So a way of moving roughly 20% of a build-out, 20% of an expansion, 20% of a project on down through the bottom line. It's kind of a nuanced aspect of accounting, and I met with Bob Denninger at Plant Moran. I think I can say that. Mm-hmm. And he gave me the information on it. I thought it was super beneficial for not only the beverage aspect of what I do, but also just in general. I mean, just manufacturing, that nobody knows about this stuff. And
you're saying for like $1 million expansion, it would be $200,000 in the first year. Yeah.
I'm not going to get it. I don't want to mispronounce something.
A whole $1 million in the first year.
Yes, $2 million actually. You got a multiplier.
Exactly.
No, but just the aspect of basically accelerating depreciation on part of it, on a part of the project, it can be so considerable for breweries who are growing and expanding. I mean, just think if you can take that money, reinvest it into the next project, spin it forward. And, this has absolutely nothing to do with dust or pills, but, this is the kind of shit. Sorry. Dump. Sorry, it's stuff I geek out on. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's 4 episodes. I've never done
it.
Makes me feel like a real a-hole.
Barrel-aged stuff. I can't handle this place.
I have like 8.
What's up, Eric?
Sorry. I want to do a shout out to 3 things. Obviously, number 1, accelerated depreciation. Yes, I'm glad we all learned about that tonight. Number 2, if you're listening live tonight, there's a benefit happening Friday.
Yes, tomorrow.
November 3rd
for this we can do
at
it.
the Green Lady.
You are human garbage, Eric.
Thank you. So there's a fundraiser for leukemia.
Now,
listen, stop.
Seriously, no. If you're in Chicago and you're listening live and you want to come down to the Green Lady, and it's going to be a way to raise funds for this little kid who unfortunately has leukemia.
Harvey. Cal,
Harvey.
friend of the show, been on the show many times.
Cal's a great guy. A lot of breweries have sent up some really cool care packages. So there's going to be some raffle items, there's going to be some auction items, and there's going to be a lot of beer you can drink. And all the proceeds are going to go to the leukemia treatment for this kid Harvey. So if you're in Chicago, do that. And then my last thing I would say for people listening in the future is, I am ISO Dust. Send it my way.
He's not kidding,
Thank
guys.
you.
He's not kidding.
He has no dust right now.
Will Moore.
On a serious note, there is an event that I will be attending tomorrow at the Green Lady. That is Brews for Harvey, from someone from my organization, Mr. Calvin Fredrickson's poor nephew.
The beers are catching up with you, my friend.
It turns out we've got all kinds of amazing raffles, verticals of barrel-aged Caliente from Spiteful, if that's the sort of thing that you're into.
Like 3 years,
Every
right?
single... Yeah, well, I mean, we may have been transferring a 4th year today.
Whoa.
In any case,
all right.
I would highly recommend...
All right, Jeff, anything for you?
Oh, well, we'll be sending beer to Fobab this year, so... I guess for any local listeners who are going to Fobab, we'll be there. Our head brewer, Avery Swanson, she's going to be up representing us there, and always love sending beer to Chicago, and just love the beer scene there.
Okay.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Have been telling. We've got a true ball buster here. No outro music. We're just going to end it. Thanks so much to all my guests. We will see you next week with more of the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. So long.
Yep. Remember, this is what we said.
Yeah, we can just start singing.